What up, people? It's me, Manny, and finally I get to talk about X2 X-Men United. So without further delay, let's discuss. Alright, if you haven't already, please check out my review of the very first X-Men movie, here on the top right. And if you've seen that already, well, let's begin. X2 X-Men United was released on May 2nd, 2003, and it was once again directed by the controversial Bryan Singer, with the screenplay once again by David Hayter, though this time being joined by these two guys. Now, you know the deal. Old movie, lots of reviews, blah blah blah. So I'm gonna quickly and briefly go over the movie's plot, so then I can talk about my favorite parts and how this movie holds up today. So here's your spoiler warning, you've been warned. This movie picks up a few months after the events of the first movie, though I did see an article that said it took place 3 years after the first movie, which doesn't make too much sense. I mean, in real life it did take 3 years for the sequel to come out, but come on, no way it took Wolverine 3 years to reach Alkaline Lake. So yeah, let's go with a few months after the first movie. Anyways, we start the movie off with Nightcrawler trying to sneak into the White House to kill the President of the United States, all in the name of mutant freedom, but gets stopped at the last moment. We then get introduced to the movie's main villain, William Stryker, who is played brilliantly by Brian Cox. He asks for permission to invade Xavier's School for the Gifted, as it looks like they're hiding something. And after the recent mutant attacks, the President says yes. We then see Stryker paying Magneto a visit. It looks like Stryker is using some sort of truth serum to get some info out of him on Professor Xavier and his machine called Cerebro, which is a machine that Professor Xavier uses to link up to all the minds of the mutants and humans. Remember that. That's gonna be important later. So Wolverine comes back to tell Professor X that he didn't find in Alkali Lake. But the professor basically ignores him and tells him to babysit the mansion, while Storm and Jean go to find Nightcrawler and ask him why he attacked the president, and Professor X himself will go to talk to Magneto to see if he had anything to do with that attack, and it's a trap. The mansion gets attacked by Stryker and his troops, so Wolverine goes berserker on them, but it seems like Stryker knows Wolverine. Anyways, Wolverine, Rogue, Pyro, and Iceman escape. Speaking of escaping, Mystique injects liquid metal to the security guard that is watching over Magneto, so that he could escape and does so successfully. Wolverine and the rest escape to Iceman's parents' house, but Iceman's brother snitches him out and calls the cops. Pyro isn't gonna take it anymore and starts blasting the cops. Then Jean and Storm show up so they could all escape, but now they got the frickin' military after them. Storm knocks them out with some tornadoes, and we even get a glimpse of the Phoenix here. But it's not enough as they go crashing down, only to be saved by Magneto. This is where they all team up and come up with a plan to go to Alkali Lake to stop Stryker from killing all the mutants. Now, how is he gonna do that? Well, Stryker built his own Cerebro, and he also has a mutant son that can manipulate your head and make you see things that aren't really there. So his son is gonna manipulate Professor Xavier to go into that Cerebro to find all the mutants by concentrating really hard, which will kill all the mutants. So the X-Men go in there, they kick ass, Wolverine has a badass fight with Lady Deathstrike, the dam is about to collapse, they escape but the X-Jet is not working right, so Jean Grey goes out and gives the X-Jet a boost and basically sacrifices herself to save everybody else, as we get another glimpse of the Phoenix. The X-Men stop by the White House to show the president what Stryker was up to and plead with him not to start a war, which I guess he listens to. We get a final voiceover by Jean Grey about evolution as we see another glimpse of the Phoenix and the end. Woof, that took longer than I expected. Speaking of which, this movie kinda dragged. When I saw this movie back in the day with my younger brother, that is one of the complaints that he had, that the movie was way too long and it got kinda boring. Now I just thought he was saying that because he was a little kid, and the movie wasn't non-stop action from beginning to end. Now, I can see that. There are a few spots you could cut down to improve the pacing, like this part in Iceman's parents' house. But that's probably all the negatives I have to say about this movie. This movie had me from the opening credits where they finally used that epic X-Men theme by John Ottman. And man, the opening action sequence with Nightcrawler in the White House still f***ing holds up today. I'm not too surprised, they almost blew the whole budget on this scene alone. Yup, the Sentinels and the Danger Room was supposed to appear in this movie, but had to be cut out since they were already gonna go over budget. And unfortunately, this is the only action scene we get with Nightcrawler. It's okay, maybe in the sequel we'll get to see more of... Oh. I also like all the Easter eggs they put in this movie, like this one, and this one too. And damn, it's a shame that Stan Lee didn't make a cameo in this movie. He could have done one right here in this scene. But anyways, what I like about this movie as a whole is that it really does feel like a continuation of the first movie. So from the characters to the tone of the movie, everything just feels right. I also love how in this rivalry, Cyclops stands up for himself more.
Your bike needs gas. Fill her up.
Unfortunately, Cyclops is not in this movie much either. He has this action scene here that, even though it's short, is still pretty cool. But after that, he's pretty much gone from the movie until the end. Now, the whole cast here, once again, is great. Magneto here, he is one of my favorites in this movie. Now, I remember in this scene right here, I felt so bad for him. He just looks so frail. Fast forward to this scene right here where he does a fatality on this guard here.
Fatality. Flawless victory.
It's also so in his character to switch the Cerebro machine here at the end to attack all humans instead of just stopping it. It's pretty messed up, but I'm glad he stood true to his character. And bro, the action scenes with Wolverine in this movie? Holy sh**. Badass and intense. He's really putting those claws to good use. And the fight scene with him and Lady Deathstrike? Pretty f***ing epic. Holy sh**. But also pretty violent. I remember back then thinking this is pretty intense. According to the Wikipedia page, the first cut of X2 was rated R. And yeah, I could see that. The movie was kinda dark too. I kinda felt bad when they left Stryker's son, Jason, here behind to die. The X-Men don't do that no-kill rule bullshit. And yeah, I felt bad because of his appearance, but if you think about it, he is pretty f***ing evil. So I guess he got what he f***ing deserved. I know Stryker definitely did. His soldiers did too. Oh man, this part right here with the grenade pins, that's gotta suck. Also, Wolverine goes through so much physical pain here. After getting stabbed a bunch of times by Lady Deathstrike, he goes through more pain by having his head turned into mush by Professor X. Man, I remember thinking, when is his suffering gonna end? I definitely don't envy him here. So, one of the plot points is that Wolverine has amnesia and is trying to find out about his past and how he got his adamantium skeleton. But they're really vague about it. They don't really give you an answer here. Yeah, Stryker talks about it to Wolverine very briefly, but I don't know. It's still no flashback showing you what happened in Wolverine's past. And I'm not gonna lie, that used to bother me back then. I was very invested in finding out the answers to that storyline. Remember, I didn't follow the comic books or the animated series. But maybe us not finding out was the point, as Wolverine didn't really care at the end of the movie. Or they were just saving it for the Origins movie. I'm sure that turned out great. But yeah, man, the first time I saw this movie in theaters, I almost couldn't believe what I was seeing. It was so f***ing good. I love this movie so much, I actually got my hands on a bootleg copy of it before the DVD released. The crowd in that theater was super into this movie, cheering throughout the whole mansion action scene. I do remember in this part when Wolverine said, "You wanna shoot me? Shoot me!" One guy in the theater screamed, "Yeah!" And everybody started laughing. That was pretty funny. Bootleg copies are interesting, but support the official release. I also ended up getting the X2 Wolverine's Revenge video game on the PS2, which didn't get the best reviews, but I loved this game. It was a lot of fun, and the graphics at the time looked pretty damn good. And Mark Hamill voiced Wolverine here.
We'll hold fire on the celebrations. Security looks tighter than one of Jean's costumes.
Also, when you kill the enemy soldiers here, they do this hilarious grunt. It just sounds like they're coughing to death. But yeah, I even bought this magazine talking about X2 and what the future holds for the entire franchise and just being so mesmerized by it. It also had this very funny Robot Chicken styled comic in it, and I used to love it. It was hilarious. I even bought the graphic novel this movie's based off of, God Loves, Man Kills, and it was alright, pretty good, but yeah, I prefer the movie. But yeah, this was my favorite superhero movie up until The Dark Knight came out in 2008. Now, this is not as perfect as I remember it being, but it's still a very good movie. From the story, to the performances, to the special effects, and the cinematography, how I love it. A lot of cool shots here. It all still holds up pretty damn great, even though its length and pacing has some issues. And Kelly Hu as Lady Deathstrike was perfect casting. She looks great. But man, I wish they gave her some lines and some more character development. Like, how did she end up with Stryker anyways? But I get it, it's a big cast. Mystique also barely had any lines. But anyways, with that, I give X2 X-Men United a 9 out of 10. Well folks, there you have it. Those are my thoughts on X2 X-Men United. It's not the perfect 10 I remember it being, but it's still a great film. Now what about you? What are your thoughts on this movie? Please comment below and let me know. And if you like this video, please give it a like and share it on social media. And also please subscribe to my page, as it will help out a lot as I do more videos in the future. Now with that, this has been a review of X2 X-Men United, just cuz.